So, hello everybody, and welcome, and joining us. Thanks for joining us for this live LinkedIn session. And I hope all of you are here with us and participating. I'm Itzik Amiel, and we are here with the weekly interviews series called Switch It On, and where we talk actually with smart and talented people from all over the world to teach you or to share with you how you could switch your practice and absolutely your life. And it could be people from out of your comfort zone, not necessarily from your community, people you need to know and you don't necessarily know already. So you're very invited to join us. And today we are going to talk about legal culture. So please feel free to type in the chat box and let us know where you are, where you're dialing from. We want to know who you are because that's important to all of us. Thanks, Dale. Thanks to David, Alex. Awesome to see you all coming. So type in the chat where you are to see that all of you. I know from all of the world people joining us. So it's important also for our guests to know when he approaching and speaking about the subject. So I have the honor actually today to have this live session with a friend and a true cultural pioneer and expert. Today my special guest is Dr. David Cohen. So before I invite David to join us, let me give you a short introduction about David. So David Cohen is a thought leader on corporate culture and behavioral competencies. He's an author and a speaker, and he's the founder of the principal consultant of DS Cohen and Associate. David actually works with leaders, helping them understand what is and what is not necessary to build an active and positive organization. He helps leaders step into life challenges, inspiring them really to create sustained approach through a value-based focus, resulting in better business results. David is a member of Marshall Goldschmidt MG 100 Coaches, and he's also authored 2 books and numerous articles in professional journals. So without further ado, I know I can go on. I will let David join us. So welcome very much, David, and we appreciate you for coming and joining us. Thank you for that.
Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I'm sure everybody here for a treat, and I really again appreciate your time and willing to join us live. And before I start with the first question to you, let me start the stage for our conversation for our listener viewers. Because this actually session we want to dedicate to the important subject as we decide of culture or firm culture for those professionals joining us. Because I have no doubt that creating and nurturing an environment that support professionals, both as professionals in the field, as well as human beings, and treats everyone fairly, it's critical to a firm's success, especially in our days. And challenging the firm culture empowers firms to help their employees, to help their clients, and even help their business to thrive. And in this session, I want to explore with you, David, what is exactly firm culture? What is a strong working culture looks like? And what is it so important to the firm, to all people coming from firm growth? And I know I didn't have it in the firm I used to work. And I think it's so important to a lot of the new workforce or entering firm to join for them. So I like to start with a little short thing. I think you're already familiar with it, with 10 in 1. And I will ask you very fast 10 question, and we have 1 minute for it. And I'll get your answer, and then with that, we'll dive into the next question. Okay, so you ready, David? We'll start with
I'm
that.
ready, but you know me, I talk too much, so 10 and 1 might be 10 and 2.
No worries. But so here we go. So, by the way, to all of you there who are joining us, you can also participate in the same time. If you want to add something in the chat and answer as well when David answering, do that because it's important for our discussion. So let's start with the first question. So the first question for you, David, is firm culture important for firm success? Definitely, absolutely not, or you have no idea.
Oh, it's absolutely. Without a clear, every firm, whether they define it or not, has a culture. And when the employees are aligned with the culture, it's definitely a foundation for success.
Right. Second question. Question number 2. Legal culture. One model fits all firms or tailor-made to each firm?
Uh, there are so many different, every firm in the world has a different culture because every employee and every leader in that firm's had a different life experience and a different set of values. And even if they have the same words, the definition is often different. So no two firms' culture is alike. They could be similar, but they're not alike.
Awesome. Thanks, David. The question number 3. Firm culture. The task of the firm leadership or of everyone in the firm?
Um, that's a That's a chicken and egg story, but I would say it's the leadership of the firm when it is founded that establishes the culture. It's the leadership of the firm to maintain the culture and celebrate it, and it's everybody's responsibility to live it and hold one another accountable to it.
Great. Next, question number 4. Is legal culture only applied to large firm, also to medium and small firm? Because I know a lot of attendees doesn't account for the big firms.
If you have two people, you have a company culture.
Great.
So it's
Number
larger.
5.
It's actually harder with a large firm, but more important.
Okay, thanks. The number 5. Are elements like employee recognition and reward a part of a law firm culture? Absolutely, or not always?
Oh, absolutely. But if you're going to use your culture as a foundation for your reward and recognition, make sure that you also don't reward somebody who violates it, even though they've been a rainmaker and brought a lot of people in.
Right, and we're going to come to it soon when we talk more in details. That question number 6, is correct to assume that more than 50% of law firm operational challenges are related to culture? Will you say it's a BS or completely agree about it?
I would say it's more completely agree.
Great. Number 7, is culture just something you can do once and tick it off your to-do list, or it's always work in progress?
Culture is every day. It's continuous. If you forget about it and violate it, everybody knows it and it destroys you.
Thanks, David. Question number 8, what is better key indicator for increased productivity and higher retention rates? Is employee happiness or clients happiness?
Well, actually, let's come back to that later because I have a long answer for that.
Okay,
And I think it deserves the time. So let's try to stay within 2 minutes. Come back to number 8.
great. You saw that I didn't give you even answers to give because I know there's a long answer. Number 9, do you think that due to the corona crisis, law firm culture becoming more important matter, less important, or the same?
I think it's more important because one question most CEOs in any firm ask me is how are we going in a hybrid workplace to maintain our culture? How are we going to let our new employees even know what the culture is? So I think it's actually more important right now.
Great. And the last question for the 10 in 1 is number 10, risk taking is strongly linked to a well-liked culture, true or false?
Come back to that one also because I got a nice answer for that one. But the reality is that risk taking, it depends on how you define risk taking. And if we're dealing with financial institutions and law firms, risk taking could get you in trouble and wind you up in jail. So I'd be careful about risk taking.
Awesome. Great. So I think with that, we finish our 10 in 1, David. And you answer all my questions. I think we can ready to continue developing more. I just want to say welcome to those people who are joining us now. And we see the comments. And I will encourage you, if you have your own questions for David during these things, David is for that. So please put your question also in the chat to ask David during our call over here. And we'll see Dale and see Alex and Ramy and Sharon. And we have people from almost every continent, David, here.
Yeah,
So, which is awesome. Which is everything we talk today is about every country, every company, every firm is applied to all of you. So it's nothing to do with the culture of your country. We talk about the culture of the firm. So awesome. So I think that was insightful to see a little bit where you're taking us, and I want to go to the next question for you. So to start our conversation, to go to the meat, as we say, my first question, David, is what is your understanding about corporate culture? Because I think everywhere you go, you see this word used loosely by everyone in article, all kind of consultant, but the assumption there is a common meaning. I don't think so. What do you think?
I think one of the most overused words and misunderstood words is culture. One thing I wish that people would do when they make presentations or write articles or books is actually use the word with the understanding that two people don't agree with it and therefore don't necessarily define it the right way and therefore define it. To me, culture is, some people would say, and it's a cute expression, but it captures it. It's what gets done and how people behave when nobody's looking. But culture is really rooted in the values of the organization because culture is reflected in the norms of behavior. and the foundation for the norms and behavior, the values of the organization.
Mhm.
The problem is organizations talk about values, but then they don't live them, and they create cynical employees. So I'd say the foundation for culture is definition of culture to me what are the behaviors that reflect the true meaning of the values of the organization, so people have a common understanding and a common belief system. So therefore, decisions are predictable how they be made. It's predictable how you'll treat people, how you treat clients.
You know,
So cultures and norms of behavior, and they're learned through trial and error.
awesome. And I think it reminded me in the beginning of the discussion, because I always complained that I didn't feel fit in a lot of firm I work. And then I understood that a lot of them had no culture and I never could attach. And talk about being cynical. I mean, didn't know who to talk to and I didn't know what to complain about. But now I get what was the problem in all these organizations I work, and I hope it will not happen in the future for
Yeah,
the future work.
but there's always a culture there, because there's always a way decisions are made. There's always a way leaders treat, reward, recognize people. So that's what I call what actually happens in the organization is not necessarily what you're taught at onboarding or orientation. So at orientation, you're taught the theory, but when you start working, you're taught the reality. And that reality is the hidden curriculum of the organization. Schools have hidden curriculum. Like, you learn from observing and experience what is happening in an organization by observation, and therefore you do that. I work with a number of police services, and the officers that do the training of cadets are always upset by by the mentor officer who takes them for the first time out, and the first thing they say is, "I'm going to unteach you everything you learned, and I'll teach you the right way of doing it." Well, it's not as blatant in most organizations, but like in schools, it's identified very quickly. And that gets back to the question, how are people going to learn that when everybody's working from home or working from anywhere? And so some organizations have actually responded to that by saying, for the first 2 weeks or 4 weeks, depending on the organization, a new employee has to come to the office. And after that, they can work remotely. So it is an important issue, culture, because it is there, whether you like it or not.
Thanks, David. And by the way, those of you joining us, I see that Sharon and Cabana and Neil and a lot of people joining us. So those of you who do not know, I'm here with David Cohen. He's one of the top culture experts in the world. And I'm happy to discuss more in details for you. So ask your question in the chat box if you have for David. And I skip my own question if you have better question than mine. I promise you. Just ask it. He's here for that. So just type in the chat box any question you have. And I'll continue with my question to you, David, because I think you wrote a lot about it, and I know you mentioned a lot of your books, but help us out. What is more important? Because I see a lot of people dealing with culture or strategy. What is more important according to you, culture or strategy?
So attributed to Professor Drucker, Peter Drucker, is culture eats strategy for breakfast, though he would say he doesn't remember saying that. And he lived a long time. But culture is the foundation for right or wrong. Strategy is the execution of the business plan. You can have a great strategy plan, and if people aren't on board or they're being asked to violate the values, they'll kill that strategy in a nanosecond. So without having a strong culture first, yeah, I think that it does eat. Culture is not eating strategy. Culture is the strategy. So if you base everything, the way I look at it, the way I tell my clients is, you have a set of values with corresponding behaviors that define success. You have a vision of where your organization is going, that North Star, that future state. The strategy is the third thing to produce, not the first. The third thing to produce, and the way to measure is the strategy correct? Will it cause our employees to violate the values? If yes, redo the strategy. Will it move us towards the North Star? If no, then redo the strategy. Too many organizations begin with strategy and then they readjust their values or they readjust their vision to meet the strategy. And all that does is confuse people, because ask yourself, when was the last time that you when was the last time you changed your values? It took you a long time to know what your values are. Values don't change. They evolve very slowly, if at all, once we hit adulthood. So if I'm in a firm where I align with the values, I believe in those values, I live those values, get rewarded, recognized for those values, having somebody come in and say we have a new set of values is going to confuse me, and I'm going to leave the organization.
David, I just want to talk that directly to one of the managing partner of law firm that I talked last week. He told me that, we work on the strategy and maybe later on this year, we'll talk about culture. So you heard what David said, culture is strategy. And you better think about it already when you develop your strategy, not later, not before. During the strategy is important part. Without it, I don't know how much your strategy worth and how much will you attract the best people to your practice, to your firm.
So think of it this way. The values and vision of the organization are the curbstone on a highway. You got 4 lanes you can operate in, which means you got some flexibility with the behaviors, etc. But if your strategy doesn't fit within those 4 lanes, it's the wrong strategy. So if you don't define your values, the meaning of the values and your vision beforehand, it's going to be like herding cats, which many law firms are, but that's another story.
Thanks for that, David. And those who are joining us now, again, I'm with David Cohen, Dr. David Cohen, one of the top experts on corporate culture. And we're speaking about actually legal culture. And I say hi to all of you there. Just let us know when you're joining, where you're from. And if you have questions to David, please put it in the chat, because I want David to answer your question as well. So, and I'm happy, by the way, I'm thanking each of you that are joining us for this special LinkedIn Live. So continue with our question to you, David, and what I see you talked about. And before, maybe I should mention before that you wrote book, The Inside the Box, and others. So if people want to learn more and there is the books available, we'll put it in the chat that people could see it as well. And of course, if you want, there's you answer already in the chat. Where can you hear about Learn from David? So here's his website. You can find more information from where David and connect with him on his website as well. It's at sagltd.com. So SAGLTD is on the screen. So with that, let me go to the next question for you, David. And it's actually about more, let me frame it differently. But is that true that culture eats strategy for breakfast? You already answered. But we have a lot of attention on culture. So why is it hiring for fit to culture considered negative?
That's only considered negative because of a couple of articles that appeared in Harvard Business Review by some leading firms, CHROs. Hiring, their understanding of culture or the hiring problem, and they're right, it is a problem, is managers hire in their own image. And if their image doesn't match the image of the organization, then they hire for the wrong culture. So many hiring managers want somebody that looks like me, walks like me, went to the same school as I, drive the same car I do, live approximately in the same neighborhood, et cetera, so I can recreate and validate myself. But when you talk about culture and values, you have people from all over the world that have similar behaviors, regardless of the religion, regardless of where they went to school. But they've come to adulthood and believe and act in a certain way. So hiring for values takes away the prejudice of hiring in one's own image. I think it gets a bad rap, and then people say don't hire for fit the culture because they have a wrong definition of culture. Culture to them is the imprint of the people that are doing the hiring. The mantra should be don't hire in your own image, hire for fit to values. And if the person doesn't already live the values, at least to some degree, I don't care their educational background, how successful they've been, don't hire them because they'll be a thorn in your side once you hire them.
And I love that you made a differentiation between value and belief, and it's not the same, of course, and it's based on the value. But David, I'll be honest with you because I see a lot of people call them the consultant in the market. That they're going to company, or going to a specific even firm, professional firm, and said, what, let me help you change the culture. I want to know from you because you have experts so many years, decades of expertise, and you help companies. Is that true? Is that possible? And how would you specifically for professional firm? What are you thinking about?
Well, let me first define what a value is from my point of view. A
Okay.
value is a strongly held belief, so it's beyond the belief, that's resistant to change and is universally applied. So if a value is a strongly held belief, emotionally charged, and there's emotion to values, because when people violate your values, you get really upset. You understand that. So as a result of that, what you need to do is you need to understand that values are the things that differentiate your meaningful life from other people's. And if people, in having their values, don't change them, then organizations who are made up of people are going to resist changing their values. So organizations cannot change culture. They can evolve a culture very slowly. And so the research is clear. And whether it's from MIT or from Harvard or from any other research that I've seen, anywhere between 85 to 90% of culture change initiatives fail within 18 months. So if that is a long record, I would suggest work on defining what I always call finding out what your culture is a back to the future exercise. Your company was great once. Your law firm was once great. It felt good. People wanted to join it. What were the values then? Recreate those. So go back to your future. Make your future what your successful past was.
Thanks, David, for that. And I think it's also showing indeed that changing culture is not the right phrase to use. Definitely, while a consultant come to you as a lawyer, accountant, whatever you are, ask to change your culture. Maybe you should doubt what they're really offering you, and it's possible to be done, because otherwise you waste your money on nothing.
Yeah, too many professional firms, however, do hire people because of their experience and their success and their client base. And then they bring them in, and then they find out while they're a rainmaker, nobody really wants to talk to them or work with them. We'll work with your client as long as you're not involved. So is it really worth it? Because how many employees did you cause stress, aggravation, low productivity, or leave? And the cost of hiring a good lawyer at a senior level to replace them, I would say, is probably anywhere from 8 to 10 times their compensation. So is having that person versus having all those other people leave, it's still costing you money that they leave. So yeah, they're bringing in more money, but they're costing you more money on the downside with everybody's leaving, stress leave, medical leave, and everything else. So it's kind of like you got to consider what's really going on.
Thank you, David. And I want to thank all of you there that your comments, I could see them. And indeed, and Sharon said, yes, don't reward toxic rainmaker. And I think, you're right. Absolutely, Sharon. And that's experience of a lot of us. And I see that Dale, you're sharing a lot of interesting thoughts from your practice, from your knowledge. So thank you for that. And Hank, with your things and comparing what indeed Peter Drucker said and what David said today, as culture does not eat strategy for breakfast. Absolutely. So keep coming with your comments. And if you have any questions, because we're almost at the end of our conversation, as you can see, I'm waiting for your questions. So if you have a question about culture in your practice, your firm, don't be shy to ask. Asking will teach all of us, including David and myself. So, while waiting for your question, let me ask you the next question, David. And to remind everybody else, we saw recently, part of us read a McKinsey article, and they noted that the board of directors should be involved in the articulation of the culture of, and they should be the guardians of the corporate culture. And I think we talked at the beginning when I asked the 10 in 1. Is that true? Do you agree with that? What is your intake on that?
Well, there's a great book put out by a lawyer. I'm pretty sure the name of the book is this Shareholder Myth, where she details, based on U.S. law, and she's just for U.S., that the board of directors really doesn't have that much control over the executive team and the company, what they do. A great example of that is Charles Schultz when he was at Starbucks. His fundamental value, his guiding light in life, was human dignity. And he embedded that in the organization. Now, he could do that because he was there when it was beginning to expand and grow, and he was the CEO at the time. So when you're starting a new company, that CEO does have that opportunity to create the culture. It ain't going to change, because after he left, and there was an incident in Philadelphia where two people of color were kicked out and police came, Starbucks' response was the CEO got on an airplane, flew to Philadelphia, and apologized to these two guys. And then they set up a sensitivity training for diversity course where they closed all of the stores and lost $600 million that day. So the values were more important. That sent a clear message to their employees. We'd rather treat you right and treat our customers right than to make some extra money. Now, that's a strong message for employees. And when Schultz was questioned at a board meeting, at a shareholder meeting, about giving same-sex benefits, his response, he says, he said to the person, respectfully speaking, if you can get better than a 35% return on your investment in this past year, please take your money and go somewhere else. I'm not going to change it just because you think I should be a profit machine. I should be a people machine first. So the board comes from outside organizations. They have different experiences. Those organizations have different cultures. They don't know what the front line feels, does, and how they behave. So the board getting involved in leadership, defining it, is nothing but, I believe, a quagmire that is going to cause a lot of organizations to have a lot of questioning what's going on. Now, I worked with boards after the values were defined and took them through an explanation of why the values were the way they were and what the board needed to do to respond in a way that the employees would appreciate it. So the board works within the culture of the organization. It's not easy, because some try to influence it that says, no, we should try to do this. And I said, here's the critical incident that validates that this is really a value in this organization. And it ain't going to change.
Thanks, David, for that. And I see the people asking questions. So let me bring one question I see coming from Hank. And he said, and I read it for you, our company is still very young, but we are growing. What steps should we take to make sure we get the culture right?
Well, first step, Hank, is, as I said, know your values. Define your values. Define the belief system that you will not violate. Define the behaviors. How do they look at? Look at incidents in your life and the life of other leaders in the organization of what happened when that value was violated. And yeah, respect, trust, love, peace, and all that are sort of given. Go beyond that. Find the real values that differentiate you as an organization and understand the behaviors that define them. Because a value without, a lot of organizations put values up there and then they find some Hallmark card, flowery definition to put alongside it. So employees don't know what it really means. So they can interpret it any way they want. To avoid that, you've got to put down 4 or 5 specific behaviors. If you act this way, you will truly be living the values. So start early, celebrate it. And I can tell you with the company I did in Corpus Christi, Texas, that did that, they hired 60 employees based on the values. They hired people that the CEO said he would have never hired before. And they lost nobody in the first year. Well, they lost 2 people. One was a bad performer, and the other was because of a family situation. And, that zero turnover rate, basically, that's powerful. So it's led to great success also. So hire for fit to values, but you got to know what your values are first, and you got to know what the behaviors that define the values are. So Hank, that's my recommendation to you.
It reminds me of an expression, David, I said years ago and referring to something else. But, somebody asked me a question, and it's like the culture, I feel like a value is like a magnet of the practice. So you don't ask a magnet where are the pieces of the metal, because they will be attracted to it and the rest will go away from it. If you're wood or different sort of material, you're not going to be attracted to this magnet.
Yeah. And look at Home Depot, 350,000 employees. And the three founders had a very clear set. They don't believe, they're diametrically opposed politically, two of them, like night and day, opposite ends of the spectrum. But they said, when we treat our employees, so when they left and they had a CEO didn't treat them that way, employees said, we don't bleed orange anymore. And when the new CEO came in and re-celebrated those values, then the organization started bleeding orange and profitability started to go through the roof again. So it's no small task, but it's got to be taken a lot more seriously than people are. The one thing I wanted to get back to, which I think is really important, you asked the question, is what makes employee happiness? So the question is in a legal firm, is a lawyer happy because they're happy? Or are they happy because they perceive that they are successful? The answer is interesting. There's an expression, there's an understanding, and this is an ancient understanding. Who is a rich man? A person who is happy with their portion. Because if I am defining my success externally, I got this new client that we've all been pursuing, I'm feeling really good. Eventually, that's going to wear off and everybody expects you to go get another client. So now I'm miserable again until I get another client. So if I define happiness based on my success, my promotion, because once you're promoted to, an associate lawyer, then you want to become a partner, then you want to become a senior partner, and then you want to become, a director in the firm. So you're pursuing this golden ring that doesn't define your success.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to remember this: you're 90 years old and you pass away. Who's going to be at your funeral? Is it going to be those people that you helped along the way or that you beat up along the way, who probably maybe not forgot about you, but you've been gone from that firm for 20 years. Things have changed. People have moved on. Your family's the only one that's going to be there, hopefully. And so you got to really focus on it. Be happy in your portion in life. Understand who you are and stop defining success. So who is happy? A lawyer who is happy to begin with will, in fact, achieve all those things. A lawyer who is always pursuing happiness based on their success will always be miserable. Though they appear happy, they're always ready to get the net. I remember once at a brokerage firm, the CEO said to me, "Come with me." And I said, "Where we're going?" He says, "You'll see." And he had this very successful young broker who had 2 houses, a cottage up north, everything was going great for him, young guy. And he dropped off a Rolls Royce brochure on his desk. He says, "I just got to keep him motivated." My comment was, is that's what motivating him or something else motivating him? You don't even know. And most executives don't know what really motivates their employees. Happiness has to come from a contentment with yourself, not external factors. So that's the answer to that question.
Lesson for life. And I see another comment here or observation by actually a smart anonymic LinkedIn user. So they said the partner structure of a law firm and other professional firms or services makes it even more difficult to change the culture as I see it. They are owned by senior partners, try to change the culture and recruit from the bottom where you focus on delivery. What is your intake on that, David? Do you agree or you have other thoughts about
Yeah,
that?
I worked, I won't mention the firm, but in my past life, I did work. When I left education and got into consulting, I worked at a major international consulting firm. And you're right, you know, the many clients, the receptionists, when you talk to them, they know everything. So they always laugh. So and so consulting firms in, all the big guys came in to sell the contract. And now we get all these people that are wet behind the ears who just graduated last week to do the work. So unless you hire for fit to values, you can't trust the people who are doing the work. So it's time that, you know, we pursue the right things, we reward the right things. I think because large professional service organizations are a jigsaw puzzle of different pieces from different backgrounds that never really talk about culture except in theory, and they allow people to get away with the wrong things, that it's a real issue. I work with two major law firms here in Toronto, and I was not astounded, but fifth year associates, if first year associates complain the way they're treated by people, the second year associates, the fifth year associates, I observed, were treating the first year associates for all the things that when they were first year associates, they were complaining about.
Hmm.
So it's a rite of passage. That's ridiculous. You got to break that mentality that it's a rite of passage.
Thank you for that, David. And I know we're almost at the end of our conversation. I see a lot of people still joining. So those of you joining, we're almost at the end. Did you know? I mean, here with Dr. David Cohen, one of the top experts in corporate culture. I mean, if you want to know more about David, connect with David, learn from his website again. That you were looking for sagltd.com. That is consultancy firm, and I promise you, you enjoy the conversation and all the brilliant ideas and a lot of years of experience David has to share. So you're very welcome. So I want to summarize this great session, David, with a quote that I know you don't like the person, but I quote again because I found it in Times from Jack Walsh, who said actually that no company, small or large, can win over the long run without energized employees who believe in the mission and understand how to achieve it. And I think in a lot of the firms I know, they miss it. They miss that possibility. A lot of the employees do not know why they're doing what they're doing. They're working hard till the moment they break and they leave. And it's about time law firms and specifically a professional firm generally will definitely look into the subject of strategy, culture, values to insert. So now, my friends, it's time to take action and implement what you learned from this session with David. Hope it was good. I was actually bringing David for you to ask the question, and that's what I want you to do in all the other things. So just come, ask the question. That's the only way you could learn. No question is stupid question. I mean, we're all learning by asking this question. So again, those of you who are here, I'm here with David Cohen. And as I said, he's the top thought leaders on corporate culture and behavior competencies, an author, a speaker. And I enjoyed very much talking with you, David. So thank you
Thank
very,
you very
very
much for inviting me.
much.
Thanks
The
for the
time passed
opportunity.
very fast, I know.
Yes.
David and myself want to thank each one of you that join us. Please join us next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central European Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, or 9 a.m. for Pacific Time, because every week it's time to switch it on. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
And I'll say goodbye for now, and I'll play the outro, folks.